So this is the Tri State Warbird Museum. It is in Batavia, Ohio, which is near Cincinnati. It's about 15-20 minutes outside of central Cincinnati. They have one of the larger collections of flying warbirds in the United States, especially on the east side of the United States. Right now, we are looking at an L4 Grasshopper. This was a reconnaissance and observation plane in the war. This one, the most famous L4 is probably Bazooka Charlie's aircraft, when he attached 3 bazookas to these struts here to fire on tanks after getting tired of looking at friendlies being attacked by tanks and not being able to do anything. This was an extremely reliable aircraft. It could fly at lower heights, spot for artillery and friendly targets, and then land and get the locations out of the enemies. If we come over here, we see one of the main vehicles of this museum, the Cincinnati Miss. It is a P-51D -25. This one was built in 1944 for the Australian Air Force. It did not end up in combat. It was built way too late for that. So instead, they took it to use as training, and then they retired it in the early 50s. When this plane was retired, it only had 600 or so hours on it, which made it the perfect airframe for restoring to flight. We walk all the way around it, you can get a wonderful view of this plane. It is a gorgeous restoration job. I've actually seen this plane flying during the Memphis Belle unveiling a few years ago at the Air Force Museum. They landed it at the Air Force Museum, and you can walk up and look into it. They have accurate. They had the gun doors open, so you could see how the ammo would be loaded into it. It was really cool. Absolutely gorgeous aircraft. If we come over here, there's a very gorgeous Chevrolet car. Don't know the make or model. They have a lot of vintage cars here that are gorgeous, and I wish I knew more about them, but not a big car guy. I do love that crimson red, though. If we come over here, this is a PT-17, the Stearman Cadet. It was a plane built by Boeing and Stearman. It was used for basic training, which means it's, primary training, which means it was the first plane that pilots would be used to train on. This was a workhorse for many years in the Air Force, and also it was used by the Navy a lot as well. Pretty much every pilot who flew in the Air Force started out flying one of these. As you can see, it is in gorgeous condition. Every plane here is freshly painted and well cared for. Behind me is an AT-6 Texan. This one is painted up as an SNJ, which means it was a Navy aircraft. This is the SNJ-5 or AT-6 Texan. It was an advanced trainer, so once you graduated from the basic trainer over there, you came over to the advanced trainer. As you can see, it is painted up as a bright yellow Marines trainer. All of the trainers usually incorporated some level of yellow on their fuselage, partly to make them easier to see, partly to identify them just as strictly training aircraft. You can see that we did, like the basic trainer over there, we have 2 cockpits, one for the student up front, and then the trainer pilot will be in the back here. If we come over here, We have a wonderful P40M. The P40M variant is closest to the P40E that we have in game, so it does have an Allison engine. It was made strictly for export. One of the big differences is that it would have a longer fuselage than the E we have in game, and that is because when they enlarged the engine, it caused balance issues. They originally solved that by making the controls larger, but then they ended up just lengthening the fuselage to make it easier to control. As you can see, it is done up in New Zealand colors. This was, in fact, a Kiwi aircraft. It was used for a few years. It never ended up seeing combat because it was involved in an accident before its squadron shipped out. This plane has actually been involved in a number of accidents over the years. It was even involved in one here at the Tri State Warbird Museum. This is the condition they recovered it in originally from New Zealand. As you can see, it was in a much different shape at that time. And they've built it up into this wonderful vehicle here. Actually, when they crashed it here in Ohio, this is what was left of their engine that they could salvage. As you can see, I don't think that would run too well again. I think that piston might be a little seized up. But yeah. One interesting thing I want to show on this, actually, is how the release mechanism here works. So, if we look over here, you can see that all of these bombs have these little propellers here. This basically arms the electronics in the bomb when it spins. It's held in place by these wires right here. When the bomb is dropped by the release mechanism, the wire will pull out, the propeller is now free to spin, and that will arm the bomb. That's mainly how pretty much every bomb would work. And I think it's really interesting that they have it set up like that for that display. If we come over here, we can see what the restoration project for that P40N was like. You can see that a lot of the parts had to be replaced over the years. You can see it wasn't in the best condition when they first got it. Isn't that impressive, Tech?
Yeah, it is. They were able to put it together. And then, didn't you say they were crashing it again? Which is a bit of an issue. Or is this post-crash in Ohio?
This is post-crash in Ohio. It's flyable again.
Oh, really?
Which is wonderful.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah, no, it's crazy that they took something that was in this kind of condition and made it fly, you know? Yeah, no, it's in flying condition, but they don't fly it too much. P40s are pretty rare, and they're a bit expensive to operate. So I'm not surprised. If we come over here, this is really interesting. This is something I've never seen before. This is off of an A-20. This is a torpedo sight for an A-20. And as you can see here, what the idea is you aim it offset here so that you're flying straight at the ship, but your torpedo is aimed offset so that you will aim in front of the ship to bomb it. Because obviously, normally bombs you just aim straight at the target. But with ships, they're going to be moving. So you sort of guess the speed of the ship, aim the offset there, and fly towards the offset while looking straight at the ship here, so that when your torpedo intercepts, it'll hit. And I think that's a really interesting sighting mechanism. It's relatively simple, but I've never seen one before, and I think that's really cool.
I didn't even know A-20s could carry torpedoes, so that's news to me.
Yeah, that also was really interesting to me. But you can even see on the diagram here, that's an A-20. If we come over here, I don't want to give too much away in the second hangar yet. We have a big old searchlight. Your pretty standard military base searchlight for looking for any enemies flying over. We have a few bomb sites over here and cameras. These are both going to be Norden bomb sites. So this one here is a Norden bomb site, and we have one over here. I was hoping to look through here, but unfortunately the mechanism seems to be a little bit off, so you can only look in and just see the mechanisms in there. The sight part isn't working, which is a shame. We also have some other lighter bomb sites for things like the B-25, as well as aerial cameras that would have been used. This over here is a radio unit for communicating with aircraft. You'd stick 2 of these on a truck, and then you'd be able to communicate with most aircraft within a few 100-mile radius. It's just an impressive little piece of technology for the time. Before I move into the second hangar, I'm going to show you one more thing. We have 2 beautiful engine cutaways over here. So this here is an Allison 1710. You look here, you can see the intake valves right here, and you can see the pistons. You can see the gear shaft over here. This is the best cutaway I've ever seen of a Allison engine, and I'm in love with it. I just stared at it for about 5 minutes.
So what plane with this power then?
So the Allisons were in the early Mustangs. They were in the P-38 Lightnings, and the P-40 right here uses an Allison engine. So this was a pretty big workhorse during the war. Eventually, they did start getting replaced by Merlins because Merlins had better high altitude performance. But in terms of low altitude performance, the Allison 1710 was almost unmatched. It was a wonderful vehicle, or wonderful engine. Then over here, this one here is a Wright 1830. This is what would power things like the B-24. This is actually the most produced engine of the war, mainly because it was used on the B-24. So you had 4 of these per B-24, which was the most used aircraft, the most used bomber of the war. You can get a good look at all the rotary arms here. Here's the gearbox. We have a turbo right over here to suck in all the air, and it would come through here. It would turn the pistons when the gas combusted, and then it would be exhausted out the sides here. And actually, something cool that the guy showed me is if I flip this switch, it even runs.
What? Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it's really cool. So that was really, really cool to see. So yeah, they've that was the coolest. I was just walking through, and the volunteer was like, "Hey, you want to see this run?" I'm like, "Sure." He just flips that switch. I'm like, "All right, it's running." I don't know much about bikes, but this is a motorcycle. So, yeah, that's about all I got for you on this one. I'm assuming it's probably a Harley or an Indian. But it is a Army motorcycle, as you can see up here. It is a 1st Battalion headquarters bicycle. That's all I know. Maybe someone in the chat knows more about motorcycles, but that's all I got for you. This over here is the Link ANT-18 trainer. This is how they train for navigation with pilots. You would basically control that for a long time, and this guy would plot out your course and then sort of just tell you how you're doing. And that's how you would train on navigation. It's just hours and hours and that every day, and then they would certify you and get you flying. We have some uniforms here. Pretty standard, built for cold weather, and obviously you got a life vest if you need a ditch. And then there's a Luftwaffe uniform. Pretty standard stuff. I'm sure everyone's seen a uniform or two in there in movies and games and so on. Last thing in here is this Willys Overland Jeep. As you can see, it does have a 30 cal mounted on top, the good old trusty M1919. And this was a forward command Jeep. It's why it has a radio right here. Yeah, so that's this hangar. They do have one more hangar. It is a wonderfully exciting hangar. So we'll go over there. I did lose connection the first time I did this, so we'll see if this holds up, tech. Let me know if it does, and I'll restart. All right. Is it still holding up?
And just as he says that, it goes. Can't be serious.
Am I back?
Yeah, you're back. You're here.
Awesome. All right. So I'm going to keep looking this way. I don't want to look to my left. I'm not quite sure what this is. It does look like a
You give me that gasoline and I'll gain
I'm trying to
ground
think of the
with it. I'll
name of
kill
it.
Germans too. Give me
Super
400,000
Parasol,
gallons,
which
I'll
they
go
have
to the land.
another one of over in the other corner. So that's what I think it might be. Or it is another observation aircraft like the L4. I'm not sure which it is. I think it might be an L4 specifically because of this engine. This is a pretty big engine for something like a Super Parasol, but I don't know. I'll maybe have to ask around on that one.
Just to let you know, that bike before was used for carrying messages, basically. So it was a message delivery.
Okay, that makes sense. Fair enough. So this over here is a Beechcraft Model 18. We saw one of these at the Champaign Aviation Museum. It was the last plane I showed outside. This one is done up as an SNJ-2, which is the 2-engine trainer for the Navy. As you can see, a lot of yellow and orange on it, like a lot of the other training aircraft. This one is painted up as a Gitmo Bay aircraft, so that is Guantanamo Bay. Most people forget that it was actually a Navy installation, still is. But it was a Navy installation in World War II. Absolutely gorgeous aircraft. I do always love this. It's one of my favorite twin-engine aircraft just because of the just the general look of it. If we come over here, this is a vehicle I know. This is a Ford Woody station wagon. This is one of the first station wagons ever designed. As you can see, it does have wood paneling, which would continue on with a lot of station wagons after the fact. Absolutely gorgeous car. They just don't make them like this anymore, Tech.
The engines are the most interesting thing, because they're basically like chain engines, right? So what you would see on like a motorbike, but upscaled. And they just look absolutely stunning, and they're really fun to work on as well. I've had the pleasure of dealing with a lot of 20s and 30s vehicles, and they just, it's just so fun, like repairing them and working with them, basically.
I can imagine. This over here is a gosh, what was it? It's a Ford. It's got a Ford V8. I never know the name of this, but I see this car so much. I don't remember. So I'm sure someone in the chat will be nerdy enough to know. But this is another just prime example of 1930s, 1940s vehicles. If we come over here, this is the Super Parasol I was talking about. It's a tiny little aircraft. These were really popular in aviation in the 30s. Very tiny. I don't know if I would trust myself in this, but someone did. That's why they built it. If you actually want to look at something crazy, the size of this engine, just to keep this thing aloft, is the same size as this cylinder off of a B-25. So this is just one of the cylinders off of this engine here, for this B-25. By the way, this is a B-25. This is the Yankee Doodle. It was originally known as the Axis Nightmare. It was a trainer aircraft. This was the second to last B-25 built. It was delivered to the Air Force in 1946 and used as a training aircraft until its retirement, at which point it was then sold from customer to customer until it was bought by this museum in the 2000s. As you can see, this one is a little more rugged, a little worse for wear than the rest of the aircraft here. I'm sure it will be getting a new paint job sooner or later. I do believe this is flight worthy, and they have flown it a lot recently. So that is probably part of the reason for the paint wear. If we look up inside, here's what the back area of the B-25 looks like. You got the gunner seat up there. You got the two side gunners here. If we come here, we have another B-25 bomb bay like the last time. As you can see, this one's been fitted with an auxiliary tank, so it no longer has rooms for the bombs. And then if we come up here, it smells like fresh paint. You can crawl up there to get to the nose guns. And then up there is the pilot and co-pilot. You'd stand on here if you wanted to use the turret on the back. And that's about it for a B-25. There's not a ton to it. It's a very efficient use of space in this airplane.
I'd not want to be that front gunner trying to crawl out of there if anything went wrong.
Well, you do also have this door
the
right
escape
here.
hatch.
But even then, that's a small door.
Yeah.
Like everyone was just smaller back then. I couldn't do it. Over here, and this is something that always I never can grasp the size of this plane. It always baffles me. It's similar in size to the B-25, and it is the TBF Avenger. If we get these side by side, I don't know how well I can do. This is as far as I can back up. These planes are not that different in size. And yet this thing is powered by one big old meaty engine, you know? It's absolutely just the most mind-bogglingly large aircraft to me. I just, it's gorgeous. It's got the big old folding wings. I would not trust it to fly just because it's so massive. We come over here, we can actually look up inside of it. So you'd fit a torpedo up in here, and then Bob's your uncle, you're a torpedo bomber. There you go. I'm gonna see, they don't have the mounting mechanisms installed. This is I mean, just to give you an idea of how big this thing is, I am just standing up head height, and I can walk about halfway down this bay before I have to even bend my head. Like, this plane is absolutely massive. The TVM is always just fascinatingly large. And you got this big old engine over here. Look at this thing. I'm still walking. It's just crazy. If we come back here, you have the gunner up here. So there's your turret on the top. If we look over here, here's the turret on the bottom. You'd be shooting at it there. Got a big old tail hook to stop this big old plane whenever you hit the wire. If we come over here, you can look up into it. You can see just how roomy this thing is. It's absolutely nuts.
Especially compared to that B-25, where it felt like you were very much cramped up. This thing has a ton of space.
Oh yeah. And that's pretty much due to its smaller bomb load to some extent. Because all it's got to do is carry one torpedo, right?
Yeah.
So, does make sense. So, the last thing I'm going to show you, well, no, there's a car. There's a few things. I'm trying to avoid my favorite part of this museum, because I want to show it off last. So this over here is a beautiful Packard Motors vehicle. I absolutely love the exhaust on this thing. You just have this beautiful, streamlined, almost aircraft-like exhaust. Or not exhaust, but you know what I mean. The what do you call that? Whatever. But just another gorgeous example of aviation, or of automobiles. Shut up. This over here is a Wright 28 or a Pratt & Whitney 2800, or is it Wright? No, it's Wright 2800. This is off of a Corsair. They do have some of a Corsair here. This is the engine mount. You have the wings here. You have the fuselage, or some of it. So there's the back half, there's the front half. This is an F2G, or sorry, an FG1, which is a Goodyear built Corsair. As you can see, it is not in, this one is not in flying condition. Mostly because they don't have the whole plane, which is usually a requirement. They do have the fuel tank, though, if you want that. They do plan to get this restored to flying one day, sooner or later. And I will say, they do have more of a plane than other museums that I've been to. So they already have a decent start, I would say. This is actually the front of the plane. Or, yeah, no, this is the front of the plane. And the back. Is it? Wait. Have I been looking at this wrong? Yeah, this is the front of the plane, so you can see the wing shape here. You'll attach these wings to here. The back end of the fuselage will go on here. Engine up here. You just need a cockpit and some other fuselage parts, and you're good to go. So hopefully they do get this restored to flying. This is the condition it came in. So I'm hopeful. I would love to see a Corsair fly in the local area to me. So we'll see how that goes. Lastly, but not least, is this beautiful reproduction Focke-Wulf F8. It is truly a gorgeous reproduction made by Flugwerk in Germany. It was built in the I want to say 2000s. It is a truly gorgeous example of what you can do if you do want to reproduce these aircraft. Everything is painted accurately. Every piece is made to spec. The only thing that's different about this one, and I believe this is just for parts convenience, is the engine is not original. The engine on this is actually a Wright 2800, just like the Corsair over there. So if we look in here, it is a little different than what you'd see in an actual Focke-Wulf 190. But it's truly just a wonderful reproduction, and I love seeing it. It really is cool to see something like this, and it does give me hope that in the future, if these rare planes do need, if these rare planes do go out of style, or the last surviving ones crash, the last airworthy ones crash and stuff, that we can rebuild them if we needed to, for the simple sake of preserving that history to some extent. But yeah, so this is the Tri State Warbird Museum. This is everything they have to offer. It is a truly wonderful museum. They do fly their planes from time to time, so if you check their calendar, they'll tell you about that. And that's about it for this museum.
If you guys have any questions or wanna,
does anyone have any questions? Does anyone want me to take a closer look at anything? Or
there you go. What he said.
What do you think?
It's amazing that the majority of these are in flying condition. Or at least they seem to be.
Everything except the Corsair should be airworthy, I believe. Which obviously the Corsair is not, because, I mean, it's not in the best condition for even a museum piece. But even that they plan to restore to flying. So it really is a wonderful museum.
Yeah, and all the cars look like they're in beautiful condition too, so you could probably drive them around as well.
The only one that I didn't think was in the best condition is that Ford over there, and that's just because of some rust. So, I mean, you just get a new fender, chrome that up, and you're good to go. Or a new bumper on that one, actually. But
yeah, this is the Tri State Museum, as he said before.
Yep, the Tri State Warbird Museum.
as always, there are some happy birthdays coming in from Abigail and everybody else. Thank you guys very much. And this isn't the only stop that we're doing today, which is kind of the funny one.
Oh yeah, there's more to see. One thing I do want to show off. So a lot of these museums that are open air sort of concept, there's a lot of pointy bits on planes for various reasons. And on the TBM right here, it's really great. They put a little shark over the pitot tube here, so that you don't bump into it. And I love that. Just right there, it's great. But yeah, so that's the Tri State Warbird Museum. No one else has any questions. Oh, geez, I just noticed the exhaust on this thing. Look at that thing.
That's huge.
It's the size of my fucking head. Jesus. Well, not the size of my head, but that could fit over my face, at the very least.
Yeah, that vehicle is just such a weird one.
Like, if it had two engines, I'd feel more comfortable with it. But the fact that it's just this huge one-engine monstrosity when it takes two for something else like the B-25 to fly.
Yeah.
It's just crazy to me. But, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's about it, at least for this museum. And we will be back with Rokker later on for... how long is it going to be? You said it was about an hour and a half, something like that.
It'll be an hour and a half till the pit stop that I'm going to make, and then another 15 minutes after that for the museum.
Good stuff. So obviously, we all want to thank Rokker for doing this. It's great that he takes time out of the day to be able to give us this wonderful part of history, and especially on his birthday of all things. So make sure to wish Rokker a happy birthday, whether you do it in this chat or whether you do it on the Discord. And yeah, thank you very much, brother.